Aspiring actor disappeared from a Manhattan party and was never seen again.
But his family has never given up trying to find him.
35 years since they last saw their son.
Family, detectives who tried to raise awareness about the case.
Let me show you some of the most terrifying mysteries in recent history that will leave you constantly looking over your shoulders. To date, these cases have no logical explanation as to what happened. From a teenager leaving home and never coming back, to an aircraft disappearing into dark clouds without a trace, these 15 unsolved mysteries will send chills down your spine. Number 15. Vernon Kent Jones. The horror happened on January 2nd, 1993. New Year's celebrations still lingered in the cold air of Manhattan when 24-year-old Vernon Kent Jones stepped into a nightmare that would raise a million questions. Vernon, also known as Cameron, had just graduated from the University of North Carolina and moved to New York City to pursue a career in acting. He lived modestly on Amsterdam Avenue, but on this particular night, he decided to attend a party in the East Village. Then between 12:30 a.m. and dawn, Vernon Kent Jones vanished without a trace.
Aspiring actor disappeared from a Manhattan party and was never seen again.
But his family has never given up trying to find him.
The party was on East 7th Street. Vernon was with 3 friends, 2 recently met, identified as M and P, and a closer friend identified as Z. All of a sudden, Vernon became violently ill. The whole festive atmosphere quickly turned sour as he was really gasping for breath. At 12:30 a.m., M and Z quickly crossed the street to purchase paper towels from a grocery store, leaving Vernon alone with P. They were only gone for 5 minutes, but when they returned, the apartment was eerily quiet. Vernon had completely missed. P claimed she'd rushed to the bedroom and heard the front door slam, assuming Vernon stepped outside for fresh air. But when others searched the building and the surrounding streets, there wasn't a single trace. His family later discovered his items in his Amsterdam Avenue apartment were untouched, meaning he never got home.
Cameron came out of this building, and then somewhere, Cameron Jones disappeared into thin air.
Private investigator Robert Ron, working pro bono years later, uncovered some really disturbing details. Vernon's distinctive physical characteristics, metal rods in both femurs from previous surgeries, should have made identification easier if remains were found. More than 3 decades have passed, and these 3 companions have remained silent, 2 leaving New York shortly after Vernon's disappearance. Their silence has become a wall of mystery, leaving more questions than answers. 14. Claudia Kirchhoff. 29-year-old Claudia Kirchhoff was a travel writer and assistant editor for Frommer's Travel Guides, living a successful life anyone would envy. But May 27th happened to be the last anyone ever heard of her. She'd been invited on a promotional trip to Cuba, but political tension forced her to stay at Beach's Negril Resort in Jamaica. Around 1 p.m. on May 27th, a lifeguard spotted Claudia walking along the beach, moving away from the resort. But when Claudia failed to appear for her scheduled flight home on the 1st of June, a mere concern slowly exploded into terror. The investigation revealed suspicious circumstances beyond normal. The resort's vehicle logbook for the entire month of May had mysteriously vanished. Security camera footage near Claudia's room was also erased. When the FBI got involved, tracking dogs followed Claudia's scent from the beach directly to Anthony Grant's home, a resort bartender she once dated. The dog detected her scent in the trunk and back seat of his car, on his boots and gloves, and throughout his residence. Hair resembling Claudia's was also discovered in his car. Initially, Grant denied ever meeting Claudia, but after failing a polygraph and facing mounting evidence, he admitted to their date but insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. Despite overwhelming evidence, Jamaican authorities said they didn't consider him a suspect. The family filed a lawsuit against Sandals Resorts in 2002, alleging employees knew something or they were the ones who destroyed the evidence. The case was quietly settled later on in 2007. No one ever knew how the mysteriously vanished. 13. Teddy Wong. Teddy Wong Tae Hui was one of Asia's most powerful real estate gurus, the founder of the Chinachem Group, and a man with so much wealth to attract dubious criminals. He had already survived one kidnapping in 1983, when his wife Nina paid approximately $11 million for his release. But lightning was about to strike twice, and this time, the outcome would be devastatingly different.
In 1990, Teddy Wong, one of Hong Kong's most prominent businessmen, was kidnapped again.
As Wong left the Jockey Club that evening of April 10, 1990, he was unaware that sophisticated criminal networks stretching through Hong Kong, mainland China, and Taiwan had already been tracking his movements. The kidnapping operation that followed moments later was orchestrated with military precision. The ransom demand was even more staggering, 468 million Hong Kong dollars. That's approximately 60 million US dollars. Nina Wang, desperate to save her husband again, paid half the ransom. roughly $30 million. But the kidnappers had no intention of honoring their agreement, according to confessions from the arrested conspirators.
Collins had just been assigned Organized and Serious Crime Bureau when it was handed the Teddy Wang kidnapping case.
Teddy Wang was bound and thrown into the South China Sea from a fishing boat during a police chase. His body was never recovered, lost forever in the dark blue sea. When Teddy was eventually declared dead in 1999, the legal battle over who gets what erupted. 3 wills surfaced, all claiming to be authentic, but the most controversial was a 1990 will, dated just before his disappearance, that left everything he owned to his wife Nina, with the romantic closing line, "One life, one love." Initially ruled a forgery, the Court of Final Appeal eventually validated it, allowing Nina Wang to inherit one of Asia's largest fortunes. But his death still lingered strongly in the hearts of everyone connected to him. 12. Christopher Matthew Kurtz.
35 years since they last saw their son.
Family, detectives who tried to raise awareness about the case.
Christopher was a 17-year-old teenager from a comfortable home, but April 20th, 1990 marked a terrifying day for his family. He called in sick to school, but who knew that would eventually be his last? When his family discovered he was missing, they found a hastily written note that has left investigators puzzled for over 3 decades. The note stated that something had come up, but Christopher would return by 6 p.m. Strangely, he had underlined the word "lost" twice, leaving his parents in deep concern about his state of mind and intentions. He probably used the family van because that was also missing. Then on April 21st, a second letter arrived that drove chills down the core of his family. In this correspondence, Christopher admitted he had lied about being ill to use the vehicle. Then he broke the terrifying news, stating that he wanted to end his life and offered an apology to his family. On April 22nd, the van was discovered abandoned near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Inside, investigators found a shotgun but no ammunition in it.
Chris had a 20-gauge Mossberg bolt-action shotgun with him, and he was wearing a unique watch with a zebra pattern on the wristband.
Authorities believe Christopher may have discarded the weapon, but its location was never determined. The case gathered another wave of national attention when Christopher was featured in Soul Asylum's music video for Runaway Train, a haunting song that showcased missing children and teenagers. After 6 months of silence, the family began receiving mysterious phone calls that reignited their hope as well as their terror. It all felt like being a character in a horror movie.
Now, there was a person who called us. In fact, they picked up somebody on Highway 38 around that time, and they took them to Duluth.
The calls featured party noise and background sounds, but no voice. Were they really from Christopher as proof that he's still alive? Were they from someone who knew about the case? Or were they just random coincidences that meant nothing at all? None of these questions has been answered till today.
Even if it's been 35 years, you always love them, but it's the missing.
11. David Guerrero Guevara. David Guerrero Guevara was only 13, known throughout Spain as the Painter Boy. He had such artistic talent and an eye for detail, with his works being exhibited in galleries. On the afternoon of April 6, 1987, David was scheduled to attend an interview at Lamina Gallery, where one of his paintings had recently been displayed. Despite feeling down with a headache, he quickly changed clothes and prepared for the short trip. The gallery was merely a bus ride away, so the stop was located just 100 meters from his family's home. David left home carrying a small bag, a bus pass, and his school identification, but somehow, he never arrived at the gallery. He never returned home. He simply vanished from the face of the earth. What makes David's disappearance more mystifying is both the timing and the location. Queen Sofia of Spain was visiting Malaga that very day, and the area surrounding David's neighborhood was swarming with security personnel, both uniformed officers and undercover agents. The heightened security presence should have made any abduction immediately visible to the authorities. When local bus drivers were interviewed, none recalled seeing David board their vehicles. This means that whatever might have happened to David occurred in the brief stretch between his front door and the bus stop. The investigation went cold until August 1988, when a Spanish couple visiting Lisbon, Portugal, reported seeing a boy resembling David drawing on the pavement. 10. The vanishing airplane. This particular Boeing 727 aircraft had a really troubled history. Originally built for American Airlines in 1975, it had already flown nearly 70,000 hours before being converted from passenger service to cargo operations. For over a year, it had been grounded at 4 de Fevereiro Airport in Angola, trapped in a web of financial disputes and unpaid fees of approximately $4 million. Now, multiple organizations have claimed rights to the aircraft, creating a legal nightmare that threw the entire administration system into chaos. The jet lacked a working high-frequency radio and had missing documentation confirming its conversion, which was one of the reasons it remained grounded. But evening approached on May 25, 2003. The most mysterious thing happened. The aircraft unexplainably came to life. Ben Charles Padilla, an American flight engineer, was reportedly on board along with John Mikkel Mutantu, a mechanic from the Democratic Republic of Congo. None of these men was certified to pilot a Boeing 727. Based on eyewitness accounts, it's still not clear how many people boarded. Some reported seeing only one person, while others claimed there were two, but there was no confirmed passenger manifest. The jet suddenly began taxiing without radio contact or clearance from air traffic control. Its navigation lights were disabled, and its transponder appeared to be deactivated intentionally. The massive airplane made its way onto the runway and took off into the dark clouds, heading out over the Atlantic Ocean. That was the last confirmed sighting.
Then they presumably crashed, somehow and probably without a trace.
No wreckage has ever been found. No distress signals were received. No credible reports have surfaced in over 20 years since its disappearance. 9. Jody Huisentruit. Jody Huisentruit was everything a news anchor should be. Beautiful, charismatic, and deeply connected to her small town, Mason City, Iowa.
Feeder cattle weighed here in January. The 4-H members are steered in the right direction for the Lynn County Fair this summer.
But tragedy struck on June 27, 1995, when the 27-year-old had overslept and called her television station, Kim T, to explain she would be arriving soon for her morning shift. But that phone call would eventually become her last. Between 4:30 a.m. on June 27, 1995, as Jody prepared to leave her apartment complex, neighbors heard a woman's deafening scream. The sound cut through the quiet morning like a sharp blade, urgent and terrifying. But in the confusion of the early hour, no one immediately investigated. When Jody failed to appear for work, colleagues became really concerned.
I called her and I talked to her. She was there. I said, Jody, it's 10 after 4. You need to come in. She was concerned about the show, and she said, I'll be right there.
A search in the parking lot revealed a scene that transformed their worry into horror. Jody's red Mazda Miata sat in its designated space, but the area around it told a deeper story of violence.
Police evidence indicates there was a struggle in her apartment parking lot.
Investigators discovered a bent car key, drag marks across the asphalt, and Jody's personal items scattered around like breadcrumbs. Her high heels, blow dryer, hairspray, and earrings lay around the vehicle, evidence of a violent encounter that had ended with her disappearance. A white van had been seen in the parking lot around the time of the incident, but despite extensive investigation, its owners were never identified. A partial palm print was lifted from Jody's car, but it has never been matched to any suspect. By May 2001, Jody was declared legally dead, though her body has never been found till today. 8. Sally Cheong. Z1. Sally Cheong was a computer science student who had recently returned from a year studying in Beijing. The experience she had in school had awakened in her a desire for independence that sometimes clashed with her family's expectations. Her friend described her as having an infectious laugh and a caring, trusting nature, perhaps too trusting. That evening of April 1st, 2008, and Sally went to bed around 9 p.m., but her younger sister Wendy later recalled hearing noises in the early morning hours around 3 a.m. and seeing a shadowy figure near Sally's door, which she assumed was Sally's boyfriend. Around the same time, Sally was spotted walking from the bathroom area, and that was the last confirmed observation of her alive, and immediately raised an alarm about a possible burglary by thieves. But that wasn't the case. His daughter was nowhere to be found. Why would someone planning a casual stroll from the house take specific items with her like a wallet, phone, car keys, iPod, and strangely, a security blanket? Everyone was puzzled, including the investigators. All of these pointed to either extreme emotional distress or that she's being influenced by someone else. The most chilling clue came from an email Sally had sent on March 3rd that read, "I'm afraid you gun me down or get angry." The message suggested she feared someone's violent reaction. Sally's bank accounts showed no activity after her disappearance, eliminating any proof that she might have started her life somewhere else. The case remains officially open, with investigators unable to determine whether Sally simply left voluntarily or fell victim to foul play. 7. Brianna Maitland. It was still late winter in rural Vermont roads when 17-year-old Brianna Maitland clocked out of her shift at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery, preparing for a journey that would end in one of the most haunting mysteries the state has ever seen.
However, that same year, a casino security camera did capture footage of a woman who bore a resemblance to the missing girl.
On March 19, 2004, Brianna had spent the whole day taking the GED exam and shopping with her mother, who later recalled that her daughter seemed unnerved by something. After dropping Brianna off to prepare for work, her mother last saw her around 3:30 to 4 p.m. At approximately 11:20 p.m., Brianna finished her work and told colleagues she needed rest before her next shift. The next morning, her car was discovered in a terribly horrifying scene. The vehicle had backed into an abandoned farmhouse with such force that it appeared to have been driven deliberately into the building. Inside the car, investigators found Brianna's ATM card, glasses, contact lens case, and migraine medication, personal items she would never have willingly left behind. The presence of these belongings suggested she had not planned to disappear and was probably dragged from her vehicle against her will. Investigators quickly concluded that it was likely foul play, and that the car's position appeared staged to make it look like an accident.
Originally, no matches were identified, but after a Texas lab re-examined the DNA evidence, police say they got a match.
In April, police raided a nearby house belonging to known drug dealers following an anonymous tip. While no signs of Brianna were found, the raid uncovered illegal substances in their possession. Later that year, an anonymous affidavit surfaced claiming that Brianna had been murdered, with her body gruesomely dismembered and disposed of on a pig farm. There was no concrete evidence to justify this. 6. Luke Durbin. The streets of Ipswich, Suffolk, were nearly deserted as 19-year-old Luke Durbin made his way through the darkness after a night out with friends.
The call was from Nikki Durbin, who was reporting her 19-year-old son missing.
CCTV cameras captured Luke's final movements around 4 a.m. on May 11, 2006, at a zebra crossing, showing him alone and apparently waiting for a ride back home. Luke was seeking a ride home after a long night with his friends, but no transportation was in sight. The footage from the CCTV camera captured the young man walking into the Suffolk morning and disappearing completely, leaving behind no trace of his passage or fate. In 2012, 2 men were arrested in connection with Luke's disappearance, generating hope that the case might finally be resolved. However, charges were never filed, and the investigation remained frustratingly open-ended. But here's what made this case particularly interesting. Over the years, there have been disturbing reports of unconfirmed sightings, each one offering false hope to Luke's desperate family.
I can't even imagine how traumatic it was for my friend who was observing me on my hands and knees, digging.
On May 12th, someone reported seeing him walking near Foxhall Stadium. Then in mid-2006, he was allegedly spotted around Woodbridge in a dark blue Renault. Also in 2007, a former classmate believed she saw him in London. None of these sightings could be confirmed, and each false lead deepened the wound in his family's heart. Luke's mother has been loud on how poorly the initial investigation was handled, claiming it wasn't treated as a potential murder case soon enough. In 2010, Suffolk police reopened the case under their major investigations team, officially reclassifying it as a murder inquiry. But as years passed without any light, Luke Durbin joined the growing list of young people who simply walked into the darkness and never returned. 5. The mystery beneath the ocean. Marine engineers Polina Zalitsky and Paul Weinsweig were conducting what turned out to be routine sonar operations in 2001 when their equipment detected something truly extraordinary, over 2,000 feet below the surface. The sonar images revealed some geometric formations that looked like massive stone structures arranged in deliberate patterns. The formations included a pyramid-like construction and circular arrangements, some featuring stones up to 10 feet across.
Yeah, sadly, these are made for pop science reporting. They're computer recreation.
The precision with which the structures were arranged suggested an intelligent design rather than a mere natural occurrence. Initially, the analysis estimated the formations could be over 6,000 years old, way older than the Great Pyramids of Egypt. If this is accurate, then the structures could be evidence that an advanced civilization did exist long before any recorded history showed they were possible. However, Cuban geologist Manuel Iturralde studied the sonar data and made a more disturbing observation. He noted that for structures to exist at such depths, significant geological changes must occur. According to his calculations, it would take 50,000 years to sink that far. This created a paradox that challenged every conventional understanding. The question is, if the structures were really man-made, doesn't it suggest that a sophisticated civilization existed, and not just the primitive hunter-gatherer societies? Plans were already structured in 2002 to conduct a deeper exploration of this discovery, but it never saw daylight due to some logistical challenges, funding constraints, and Cuban governmental restrictions. Till today, the structures remain a mystery locked deep in the bottom of the ocean. 4. The Pyramid of the Rising Sun. These underwater structures weren't the only mystery that kept researchers on the edge of their seats. Off Japan's Ryukyu Island's coast, diver Kihachiro Aratake made a discovery in 1986 that would once again ignite decades of debate about the existence of a lost civilization. About 85 feet below the surface, Aratake encountered a massive stone formation, similar to the ones the marine engineers discovered, but with step-like terraces that had no explanation for them. The structure, known as the Yonaguni Monument, spans roughly 165 feet long and 65 feet wide.
You go in this dramatic entrance. It was like stepping back in time.
The monument's steep terraces and precisely angled surfaces have led some researchers to call it Japan's Atlantis, meaning that it could probably be evidence of an ancient civilization dating back more than 10,000 years, and could just be one of man's oldest architectural achievements. That's if it were created by man. However, skeptical scientists like geologist Robert Schoch argue that the Yonaguni Monument is nothing more than a natural rock formation shaped by tectonic activity and erosion. In their opinion, underwater currents and natural processes can create formations that appear artificial while being a mere natural occurrence. The debate went on and on for decades without any definitive resolution. No preserved records exist to document human activity in the area during the time it was explored, and no comprehensive excavation has been carried out at the scene. The monument continues to attract researchers and authors like Graham Hancock, who just haven't given up on the hope that it could be proof that some kind of beings have existed before our species was born. Regardless of its true nature, the Yonaguni Monument still remains a mystery with lots of unanswered questions. 3. The Buenos Aires Eucharistic Miracle. On the morning of August 18, 1996, Father Alejandro Pezet of St. Mary's Church discovered something that threw the entire church into chaos.
Father Alejandro did what the church asked priests to do in circumstances like this. He took the host reverently and placed it in a cup of water.
A discarded communion host had been found during Mass. Now, Father Pezet carefully placed the consecrated bread and water within the tabernacle, following centuries-old tradition that allows contaminated hosts to dissolve naturally and respectfully. But by August 26th, something unexplainable had happened. The host had transformed into a bloody piece of flesh. The sight was so extraordinary that Bishop Jorge Bergoglio, now Pope Francis, had it professionally photographed on September 6th, as you can see in the image, before preserving it intact in the tabernacle. Then in October 1999, Dr. Ricardo Castañón Gómez retrieved a sample for scientific analysis. Multiple experts confirmed that the tissue was a piece of human heart muscle, specifically myocardium from the left ventricle. The findings utterly canceled any medical explanation. But what's more puzzling is that even after 3 years of being submerged in water, it remained undecomposed. It was indeed a miracle. Analysis also revealed AB blood type, mysteriously consistent with the earlier Lanciano miracle in 750 AD. However, some have raised concerns about chain of custody gaps and some protocols that could blur its credibility, but the facts are simply undeniable. 2. Robert G. Marvin. On September 4, 1984, 55-year-old Robert G. Marvin prepared for what should have been a routine business trip to examine condominiums in Colorado. But what transpired next left everyone petrified. Robert was an experienced geologist with Santa Fe Mining, already used to traveling between Moab and Albuquerque for work. At 9:30 a.m. on that very day, he left his home planning to drive to Durango, or Telluride, Colorado, to look at some real estate investments. But when Robert failed to return or make contact, his family's concern quickly went through the roof. Eventually, his orange and white 1974 Volkswagen convertible was discovered abandoned at the Albuquerque airport, hundreds of miles from his intended destination, and in fact, completely the wrong direction from his planned route. Inside the vehicle, investigators found disturbing evidence that transformed the case from a missing person inquiry to a probable homicide. Robert's tobacco pouch contained traces of blood, and an uncashed paycheck remained in the car. Despite these valuable items being left behind, there was no activity on his bank accounts after his disappearance. The case took on additional tragedy when investigators learned that Robert's wife, Lola Marvin, had been murdered at Albuquerque Airport in 1979, just 5 years before Robert's own disappearance. Her case also remained unsolved, creating a horrific double mystery that has haunted the family for decades. A bloody fingerprint found in Robert's car has never been matched to any suspect. To date, Robert's possible homicide still remains a horrifying story without an ending. Number 1. James Charles Stanford. James Stanford told his family he wanted to travel to Texas or California. Being just 17, James had a hunger for adventure that overshadowed any logical decision. The details surrounding James's departure were indeed frustrating. No dramatic confrontation preceded his leaving. No obvious crisis that would explain his sudden desire to leave. He simply announced his intentions and off he went, but no one ever heard of him since then. From his intended destinations, it seems like he may have been traveling without a map or detailed plan, drifting rather than pursuing a specific goal. This lack of a concrete destination makes tracking his movements nearly impossible and reduces the chances that anyone would even remember encountering him. No confirmed sightings, no remains, and no contact with family or friends have ever been reported. James exists now only in databases and the fading memories of those who knew him before he left for America. This case is only one of thousands of young people who disappeared in the early 70s, when hitchhiking was common and communication networks were only an imagination. These aren't just cases so chilling to terrify you. They only suggest that beneath the surface of our ordered world, chaos waits, and perhaps, somewhere tonight, another human will mysteriously go missing. Perhaps, evidence lies buried in forgotten places, waiting to be discovered. This somehow reminds us that someday, someone close to us might vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions for those who dare to ask what happened in the dark.